Hi, beautiful artist. Today I wanted to just give you kind of something simple and fun I'm playing with. And that is, you could call these techniques or effects. I'm going to refer to them as this is how I actually create some details because I'm not a detail person. So some of you may look at this as, oh, this is just fun effects. But this is really how I add detail to any of my paintings. So I'm going to show you, I don't know, maybe 10 here. And for those of you that have told me you're a total detail person and trying to get less detail, maybe try some of these techniques. They're a little bit more organic style of creating some technique, and some detail. And I think for the beginner, this is an easy way to add some details. I kind of refer to it as getting the details without getting too detailed, I suppose. So I've made this little sheet with some squares that I'm going to do different ways how I create detail, and you can see if any of them look good to you and practice some of them. I am using my MeiLang, my Paul Rubens. This is the 48 set. They have the 36. This one just has the metallics, and I've been using through the holidays. But again, if you're a beginner, these are fantastic starter set, I think. The colors are just so beautiful and rich and creamy and really vibrant and not chalky, and yet they get a transparency. So if you are a beginner, I could not recommend this enough. And I'm hearing back from a lot of you. I'm so happy that you are enjoying those as well. And then I'm using my larger sheet of the Artisto paper because I wanted you to be able to see what I'm painting here. So this is the normal pad you see me share. Again, great beginner set. They come in a pack of 3. I date them, I label them for the seasons, I keep them all together. They're not 100% cotton, but they have a beautiful texture, and they're perforated. So if you did want to take one out and gift it, you can, but I refer to these all the time. Let's see what else I got here. I think that's it. Let's get started. Make sure you have your clean and your rinse water. I use this wonderful, beautiful little ceramic 2-well water. I used cut for years, and after I spilled those one too many times, I invested in this little ceramic MEEDEN. Okay, so the first technique I'm going to share is probably kind of the most obvious one, and that is a pen and ink. And for me, this is how I always thought was kind of the standard way of adding maybe some detail. So I'm just got a little flower here, as you see, very washy, very loose, and I'm going to show you just adding some pen and ink. So typically when I do this, I don't draw an exact circle. I'm just kind of following the watercolor. I'm letting it kind of guide me. I'm not doing exact lines, just like that. And then here's for the leaves. So I keep this rather loose. That's just me. You could get a lot more detailed, maybe some little dots in the middle. But look at that. How easy was that? And right away, to me, that feels like detail. That's as much detail as I ever want to get. The second one, let's go actually over here because the saran wrap takes a bit to dry. And again, these are, kind of special effects or things like that, but this is how I prefer to play with my detail because I don't want to get in there and take my time and get real fussy and picky. So this is how I create detail. This would be great for water. This would be great for maybe some sky. So let me go ahead and lay down some blue color here, and I used to do this in my kids' workshops all the time, and they just they love anything that's, you know, fun and different. So I'm going to take this little piece of just plastic wrap, and I'm going to kind of bunch it up so I got lots of little crinkles and creases and things, and I'm just going to lay it on here and press it down. Now you could lay something heavy on there. I'm not going to, because I think that'll block your view of the rest of what I'm doing here. So we're just going to leave that, and we'll come back once that dries. All right, so sponge effect. Great way to get some little detail that for me, I personally could never get any other way. So I'm just going to, let's lay down my trunk here of my tree, and then going to take just a little sea sponge. These are really cheap. You can get them at Michael's, you can get them wherever. And I'm going to start going in and just laying down my tree. Like, seriously, you guys, this, you couldn't get any easier than this. That's why I love this effect. Oops, so I got a little bit too much there. That's okay. But look at that. It looks like detail. I could not get in there with a brush and do that. Let me get a little darker green here and go in and add some of that. So look at that. It took me a few minutes, and look at how wonderful. I mean, again, I could not use a brush and get in there and paint all those little tiny pieces and specks. You can use it for in a landscape for a field. You could use it in the distant for trees. I used to use it a lot when I did underwater, believe it or not, and I would go in there because it kind of looked like underwater, and that's what this does too, by the way. So anyway, that is a sponge. That's a really fun one. The next one we've got here, and let's do this one right away, is salt. And I love salt to create those little starbursty effects that if you were to go in there and do all these little tiny effects, that would take you forever. So I'm going to create, let's say, a tree background. So let's just go in, and this really works best with kind of darker colors so it shows up. So let's just do that. Okay. Just go in there. All right. Now I'm going to take, oh, and you know what? I forgot my table salt. So let me go grab that really quick here. Thanks guys for waiting for me. You know me, I'm not an editor, haven't figured that out quite yet. So I'm just gonna grab some of this table salt. I'm gonna sprinkle it on. And you want to do this, or this is what I have found as far as a technique, not when it's too wet, but definitely just like damp. So I'm going to go ahead and let that do its thing. We'll come back to that, and we'll come back to the saran wrap, and let's move on to our color pencil. So I don't use this technique a lot because I'm not a big color pencil fan, but let's go ahead, and we've got this flower here. And let's just go in and add some details. So let me find a pink. Let's see. Let's get a bright pink here. Let's try this one, see if that shows up. Kind of. Let me get one more darker one. Maybe that. Okay. And you can go in. I know a lot of you really actually enjoy this technique, which is great. And you've shared a lot of things with me. Thank you. So you could go in here. This is dry. You could also do this wet, but it wouldn't create such a fine line and detail. So if you go in after this is dry, a little bit on the same lines as using pen and ink. You could draw in all these little lines, maybe some veins. Again, kind of on the same lines as using pen and ink. I don't do an exact circle, just like that. And there you go. We could go into the middle there with some little black dots. I'm a dot person. Maybe we could use even, let's get some yellow. These, by the way, are some color pencils, watercolor pencils I've had forever and ever and ever. I did notice they still have them on Amazon because somebody asked me about them, Castle. And I just at the time liked them because there was so many different choices of colors. So let's go into the center with some of this yellow. And for me, to get that fine line with a paintbrush, I don't know. That would be a little tedious to me. So I'm just gonna go in, excuse the camera shake, guys. And there you go. I've got some little tiny yellow dots. So that's another way for some detail. Got a couple more here. Let's do detail brush. So this is a one that's kind of obvious, I think, too. By the way, this is the, which brush do they call this? Round. They're calling this a 4 round. I love this set, by the way. Let me get you. One of the things I love about it is it comes in this fun little bamboo wrap, which is really great for traveling. But look at all these great brushes they have in there. So I really like them. So anyway, I'm just using right now the detail brush. I like their brushes because they're quite firm and snappy, which I love. So here's the detail brush. I'm going to go in and let's just pick up some of that pink, dark pink paint. As you know, Quin Magenta, my absolute favorite. And I'm going to go in with very light pressure, guys. And this is where, you know, practicing your brush strokes is really good. So look at that beautiful fine line. This brush is so great for that. I pull it out every once in a while when I just feel like I need to get that, which isn't real often, but look at that. Just the lightest pressure, and because this is one of the reasons too I love a firm brush, a snappy brush, is because when they're soft, they kind of wilt over, I guess I would call it. And, you know, I really like my brushes to hold their shape. So this one is really easy for me to get that nice snappy edge, that nice detailed edge. And I might add, we're going to do it here, but wet on dry. Wet on dry is a way to achieve detail. Wet on wet is not going to give you any detail, guys, if you haven't noticed that. And then we could even do the little dots on the inside here. There we go. So again, I love this brush for that. So there you go. That is a detail brush. Now let's go wet on dry, which we kind of just did here, but I really wanted to show you, you know, I know it seems obvious, but getting that detail with a detail brush, a fine liner brush. So wet on dry, this is all dry. So when we're wet in wet, wet paint into wet water, of course, is going to flow and blend, and my favorite way to work. But if you want wet on dry, let me just show you that. You're going to get really fine, crisp, hard lines. So I'm going to use this little detail brush, but I'm going to use it on its side. So that way it's going to have a little broader line. So there we go. Got some details in there. wet on dry. So it's very similar to just using the detail brush. But if you wanted to create maybe a hard shadow, this would be perfect. Wet on dry, crisp, precise, nice detailed lines. Okay, there's no flow, there's no blurriness. As you know, whenever I get a wet on dry line, if you've watched my videos, I'm constantly going back in with a damp brush and I soften those. But you know, this is something you can do. Wet on dry could be wet on dry paper as well. So this is a lot of wet on wet, wet on dry. Look at how much more detailed this will be. Let's do a little leaf here. Point, press. Very crisp, defined line. You do another one here. Point, press. Very crisp. So if you like that look, you are going to love wet on dry. Everything is very, very crisp. Oop. There you go. All right, look at that detail. Okay, let's move on. We got a couple more here. We're waiting for this to dry. We're waiting for this to dry. Hopefully that dries for us. Dry brush. Dry brush can add a lot of detail. I've seen it used in a lot of landscapes. It can be a little tricky to use. You want to just have a damp brush. You don't want to have a real wet brush. And then the trick is to use the side of your brush, which I really don't like to do a lot, especially with dry brush. It just feels like it's too rough on my brush. But we're going to do that, and it's going to give you those fine little details that you couldn't paint in individually. So let's do that. So hopefully you can see that. Let me grab a darker color here. Get a dark color. And I haven't got a ton of water on my brush. So see that detail that's popping in there? I mean, I don't know unless you really got tiny with your brush how you could create that. And this could be really great. Where I have used this is sand, water, like on the ocean, if you did a light blue background and then came in with this and just did some sparkles, it really gives that effect of that sparkly water. So there you go. That's another way of getting some detail that's rather simple and I think easy and really kind of quick and dirty. And for me, that's how I like to paint. I don't like to get in there and take a lot of time and get fussy with my paintings. So this one I think is kind of fun, and I'm going to turn my page because I'm kind of running out of room here. This is a credit card. I use this a lot. So let's just say we're going to make a tree here. So what I would do is I'm going to take my brush, and it's just not too wet, and I'm going to create a line, but I want it a little bit. I mean, I don't want it completely dry. There we go. And now I'm going to take this credit card and watch what a great, I'm sure you've seen this. We get a tree look with the bark. Isn't that fantastic? Look at that. Might go in and just dab in a little bit, but that, boy, to paint that individually with a brush would really take some time. So scratching in, I think, is great. You may have seen me use it for rocks too. So let's say we have some different little rocks here. And I'm going to take this credit card and just use kind of the edges. And scratch in and create some texture. And there you go. You got some rocks. Very simple. For me, perfect. So there's using a credit card. Lifting. Let's do some lifting here. Let me wash my brush. Lifting, typically where I use lifting is going to be if I'm doing a sky and I want some clouds. Let me grab some water here. Oop, picked up the same color. I was trying to get a different color. There we go. And this is such a fun, easy technique, you guys. I found using tissue is really the best because it gets some finer lines. And you're just going to really wad it up and go in. Create some clouds. What I typically will do though, when I create clouds like that, is I'll go in with a darker blue and just kind of touch in while this is wet. Make it look like there's maybe some shadows in here. Rinse my brush. So that would be how I would use that. I'm just coming up, push and pull to the edge of those lines. There we go. And there you go. Some beautiful little clouds, very easy. So I think that's it, guys. I hope this was helpful. Let's go up to, now this, I'm doing this kind of quick. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off and hopefully we have a little bit of that texture. Ah, we do. So I used to use this technique a lot for when I lived at the beach and I was doing a lot of underwater scenes. This was my go-to. 'Cause look at that. How beautiful is that? And boy, I don't even know how I would get that kind of detail in there without the saran wrap. It's kind of pretty and fun. Now this salt, let's see. I don't know if it's dry. I'm going to shoot it real quick with my little dry gun, heat gun. Hold on. And then I'll show you what I do with that. So I've used this before for trees in the background. You could use it for a galaxy sky. I've used it in fields. It can have a lot of fun uses. And then, you know, let me show you one more thing here too about getting a feeling of detail with a fan brush. So fan brush is great for maybe I feel like it's a little bit of a dry brush effect, but I've used this a lot in fields of flowers. Again, that detail that I really don't know how else I would get it, because it just creates so many little lines and it just looks like individual grass there. So again, I have used that a lot over the years, and it gives you just all these little individual lines that Yes, you could use a little detail brush and get in there and make them, but you guys, that I don't have time for that. I know a lot of you really enjoy that, and you know what? That is awesome. I think it looks great when people do that, but boy, I just don't have that patience. Okay, let me see if I can get some of that salt off. Hoping this is dry, otherwise it's gonna smear. Let's see. Definitely when you do this, let this dry more. So what I do then is, again, grabbing this beautiful Zen art round. I'll have to go back and find my my link for that for you, but it really is a great brush set. And then I'm just going to go in here with my brown, and I'm going to draw in some little tree trunks. Oops. Boy, I sure do that a lot, don't I? So this is why I love watercolors. Isn't this fantastic, you guys? Isn't this so much fun? Like, look at all these different choices you have. And once you get good at, kind of remembering these and seeing all these choices, you will also see something you want to paint, and it will be like, oh, I know exactly how to paint that. I'm going to use dry brush. I'm going to use my little thin brush. I'm going to use some saran wrap to paint a background in my underwater scene. So I'm just going in and adding in little branches here and there, little tree trunks coming out, and there you go. So it's kind of like a little wooded forest there. So that's what I've got for you today, you guys. Play with these, have fun with them. That's what I'm doing all the time. We've got our pen and ink, which is really a lot of fun. I've seen you guys are loving doing that. Thank you for sending me your pictures. They're so much fun. We've got a sponge that could be used for trees and bushes and different kind of textural landscape effects. We did our color pencil, which I don't use often, but it works great. We've got our little detail brush, lifting for our clouds, which we used a tissue, a good old credit card, wonderful for tree trunks and rocks. Our dry brush, definitely practice that one. That really has a great effect. Our salt, which can be used for a variety of things, a field of flowers, maybe a universe or galaxy. I used it for some trees in the background. We've got wet on dry, which wet on dry is always going to give you a much harder line, a much more concise and precise shape. You're not going to have spreading. It's going to be very hard line and detail. So it almost looks like illustration. This is the saran wrap, which I think is such a fun technique, especially for water. That was always my go-to, and I think that's all of them. So I hope you guys have fun with that. I hope you play with these and give them a try. If you haven't joined my private Facebook group, join that. And check out my tutorials. I don't have them for every single one, but they're a lot of fun. They're only $2.50. And I will mention that as of January 2024, we'll be starting up our semi-private Zoom classes. And we'll be doing a lot of these things. I keep it a very small class, and we get to work one-on-one, and I think it's a lot of fun. So there you go. Go ahead and give these a try. Have fun with them, and I will see you all soon. Happy painting, everyone.